And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the MindCep Podcast. This is your host, Alex Muir, helping you flex your mind, body, and soul. In today's episode 120, we're going to be having on a very special guest, Steven Puri. Steven Puri is the founder of the Suka company and the Flow State app, the co-working app. So, Steven, welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you on the show. And thank you so much for reaching out to me. I know sometimes people's schedules don't always align, but you're making time for me today, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for getting us a podcast to interview together.
Absolutely. Let's share some crazy and hopefully helpful stuff today.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start off. Let's start off. Maybe you've maybe been asked this question from other podcast hosts, but something that I want to switch up is maybe talk about, so you've got a diverse background. You've been in tech, you've been in Hollywood, but let's talk about maybe one of your most challenging feats that you've had to endure in order to do, because sometimes when we're doing industry shifts, we're going from one industry to another. Maybe they're related, maybe they're not. But one of the hardest kind of setbacks that you've had to endure to get to where you want to be.
So I'll tell you, as I think maybe some of your audience knows, I was a senior executive at a couple studios, and some of that job is very structured and some of it is, unstructured creativity. And it was fascinating for me to watch. One of the hardest things for me, and how I ended up finding out, like getting medically diagnosed as ADD, was in leaving film and going back into tech when the world had become remote, right? I found out how much I procrastinate, how easily I get overwhelmed. I had this thing, I still have it, I just manage it now, that I call the cold start problem, which is tomorrow morning, man, I'm gonna get going at 9. This is when I get going on, the whole thing. And then at like 9:15, 9:30, I'd still be kind of like scrolling my inbox, returning emails, or like checking out the news or doing something like that. And finally I caught myself, I'm like, this sort of begins the dominoes tumbling if I don't get done by the end of the day. And why do I do this? And it's one of those, like you peel back the onion layer by layer, right? So I was like, okay, so I'm procrastinating. Why am I procrastinating? Okay, I'm procrastinating because I'm overwhelmed. Well, what am I overwhelmed about? And I found it was basically two things. And, now I've got thousands of members who work in this community with me, that it's a pretty common thing, which is it's either the overwhelm of looking at my task list in the morning where I'm like, all 17 things need to get done. I'm not going to get them done between my 11 a.m. Zoom, It's like, so it's almost like this paralysis of like, man, there's just too much stuff to do. Or one of those things is overwhelming, where it's like, I'll make a task that's like, write my book, redesign the app, stuff like that, where you're like, probably not going to happen for the noon podcast with Alex, And then you're like, well, why get going? And it's so easy to get the dopamine hit of like, I'm just going to scroll in my favorite little app, you know what I mean? And that leads to a minute of dopamine, and then later in the day, oh man, I'm not done. And it all traces back to that. So that started getting me really down on myself. And I looked at that, and it's true. Like maybe necessity is the mother invention. Sometimes pain is the mother invention, right?
Yeah.
That was painful for me because I'm like, I'm now running a tech company and I need to deal with this and, move my company forward in a meaningful way as a leader, right? So one of the things we developed was, after reading a bunch of the books by the smart people, because let's be honest, anything smart I'm going to say in this episode is probably from reading someone who's done a lifetime of research on it. I'm talking Flow with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Hal Newport, James Clear, Near, like all the smart people have written on this. So what I noticed was this. A really helpful solution for me was, in our app, built a little smart assistant that just helps me pick the 3 things I'm going to get done. What are your 3 priorities right now? And then as soon as I hit play in our platform, and the music starts and all the things, it hides the other 14 things. So I can only see these 3. And suddenly it's less paralyzing, which I know sounds like a mental trick you're playing on yourself.
Yeah.
But if it works, I'm down for mental tricks that work on myself. You know what I mean? That was one thing. And the other thing is, it catches me when I do stupid stuff, like write my book tomorrow morning. And it'll be like, you know what, Puri, you're not going to write your book this morning. But what if your task this morning was like outline chapter 3? Because I know you've done chapters 1 and 2 outlines already. And you could probably do that in 35 minutes based upon how fast first two chapters. And then suddenly it's like doable. When I look at my task, it's like outline chapter 3. Oh, yeah, I can do that in half an hour. Two other, things I need to do. And helping me pick what are those 3 priority things that actually move the world forward. So that was a big one for me. As you probably know, with story, spent 15 years developing stories, and the great stories are not about plot. The great stories are about a character who's got a flaw.
Yep.
And you're just watching to see, is she or he going to overcome the flaw, or are they not? Right.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a big flaw of mine, this whole procrastination overwhelm thing. And I was embarrassed to admit, like, oh yeah, man, I didn't get done at the end of the day, because the start of the day, I wasted time, So there's something.
And I love how you like, because I have a tendency to do that too. I'll write like 14 tasks or whatever, and then I'm like, no, there's no way. And you overwhelm yourself. But then
Correct.
To help, like you said, refine it down to the urgent, the most important. That's what everyone has challenges with. So basically what I started doing, like talking about using tools, using AI, like different ways of kind of like breaking those tasks down, breaking the most urgent activities that you want to get done down.
Yeah, like Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
important and what's urgent.
Exactly.
These things. Newton's right. You stand on the shoulders of giants, you can see further. So it's like, don't reinvent the wheel. Just go. Smart people have really thought about this.
They simplify. Simplify. They break the complex down to simple. And it's taken me a long time to figure that out, because I always, societal norms, societal pressure, business, work pressure. They're like, no, more is better. More is better. It's not, because as soon as you do too much, your quality goes way down. Yeah,
the quality of your life, the quality of your thinking,
it all goes down.
Yeah,
and you can't think as clearly, because we also need room, like you're talking about, like getting to that flow state. We also need room for boredom, so we can let things percolate, because it's just the brain needs time.
Oh my God,
the brain needs time to absorb everything that we just.
Can we pick up on that for a moment? Because what you just said is a good 2 minutes of interesting information. Again, hopefully helpful for some people in their cars right now listening to this. So you mentioned flow states. You mentioned boredom. Let me tell you a couple things I learned along the way. So when I was 20, I went to USC in Los Angeles, right? So when I was 20, I was working at an ad agency in Hollywood that did trailers for movies. My job was, I ran the little writer-director department where movies would come in, rough cuts from the studio. We did a lot of Warner Brothers and Buena Vista work, essentially Disney. I would assign them to a writer producer. Hey, Alex, man, we got in this, comedy. You're so good with those, Will Ferrell comedies. Write this thing, right? We do this thing. Company is owned by these 2 guys who've been doing it for 20 years, who are really well respected in the industry, and they're 40, 50 years old, right? One of them comes to my office as Jeff Calnan, who's to this day a friend, and he would call me Stevie. Don't know why.
Stevie.
So he comes to my office, he goes, Stevie, Bart. And I'm like, yeah, Bart the runner, the guy in the vault. I met him, yeah. He's like, you ever give him a movie to write? I was like, you mean write a trail? Bart, the guy in the vault, right? The one who drives around Hollywood delivering tapes. No, I haven't. I've basically been in the elevator with him, and he seemed really nice. That's all I know, right? So when he goes, I just have an instinct about him, Stevie. I was like, Jeff, you're the boss. You've been doing this 20 years. Done. Let me go find something for him. Let's give him a shot, right? So I find some B title that Warner Brothers had. There's a long deadline, like a month to write this. So if he comes back in a week, he's like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. I can give it to a pro. They can bang it out in a couple of days, right? So Jeff comes to my office 2 days later. He's like, Stevie, how's Bart doing? I was like, dude, I gave him the movie 2 days ago. He's never written a trailer before. So I haven't checked on him. I didn't want him, to get stressed out. Jeff's like, okay, fair enough. So what else did you give him? I was like, Jeff, he's never written a trailer for a movie before. I didn't give him 2. And Jeff, one of the best lessons I ever learned in film was about to come. Jeff goes, Stevie, let me tell you something. It's always about the other thing. And I was like, what, Jeff? He's like, the part of your brain that thinks that it's thinking about the thing is doing stupid work. It's the back of your mind, when you're bored, when you're doing something else, that comes up with that chocolate and peanut butter, right? He's like, if you give Bart one movie to work on, he's going to stare at it with little beads of sweat coming down his temples. He's going to write the most obvious B version of that trailer you've ever heard. He's like, you have to give him something else. So while he thinks he's thinking about the other thing, he comes up with the great idea for the first thing.
Yeah.
Can I tell you in my career,
Yeah.
how many times I've seen that proven true in film, in tech, in designing user interfaces, in how cleverly can we do this? And there's actually a great book on this called The Net and the Butterfly by Olivia Fox and Judah Pollack. And it talks about, in very smarter neuroscience ways, right? It talks about you have this like default mode network. It's almost like a baby that's like, yeah. Oh, hey, I wonder what a cell phone tastes like. You know, stuff you'd never normally associate. And it's just like thinking that way. And there's like your executive, almost like an adult network. It's, hey, man, I got to get this slide deck done by tomorrow at 10 a.m.'s meeting. I need to drive to pick up the laundry. You're like executing actions, right? And being like the adult in the room. And it's like only when the adult in the room is busy doing something does the little, default mode get to go, I wonder what a cell phone tastes like. And you can cultivate that. And in that book, they talk, because a number of our friends have created Siri, Bing, like a bunch of things, and start talking about like, how do you come up with that great idea? Astounding. If you've ever experienced like, oh, I was on a walk, I was doing the dishes, I was showering, I was driving, that's when I had the idea. That's why.
You know what's crazy? So speaking about all this, creating that mental space, because our subconscious is running the show 95% of the time, right?
Right. Yep.
And I'm a big fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I literally listened to his last 3 books like over again. So I read Supernatural. I read.
Yep.
I want to read his original. I haven't read his Evolve Your Brain yet, but I read or listened to on Spotify. Yeah, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That one was mind blowing.
Right.
You are the placebo, and then becoming supernatural. So. And he speaks about that. Yeah. He's like most human beings, like our brains we're running on our subconscious, and it's the subconscious that's running the show. So in order to get into the subconscious, the quickest way to do that is through meditation, through building your mind. Yes. Right. And it starts in as little as minutes a day. And every episode that I've done on my podcast, I always tell people it started when I was I was at a crossroads with my career in banking, because that's where I started, and I'm in insurance now, and I've come to the realization that financial services isn't for me. I'm a creator. I want to create something every single day, and that's why I shifted my focus from like the podcast. I love doing podcast interviews, but it's my main focus in the last year has been I want to build up my YouTube channel, and I want content creation to be a full time, and I want that to take over, and then become an online person.
How can I support you, Alex?
Right. So, the whole subconscious, entering that flow state.
Yeah.
Like I had a really hard time doing that, because like you said, most of us don't know how to do that when we're younger. We have to learn how to do that and overcome our mental blocks. And
get out of your own way.
Yeah. Get out of your own way. Break the habit of being yourself.
It's so exactly right. And when you touch on flow states, and for anyone who doesn't exactly know what a flow state is, but has heard it in conversation, let's just define it for a second so that everyone's on the same footing, right? Which is a really smart Hungarian psychologist, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. By the way, it's taken me a long time to find out how to say that properly. So that is how to his name.
I can't even try.
It's like 17 letters long.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, right. He had a thesis. He's like, there are high performers who get into these concentrated states where they do the things that move their life or the world forward. Oh. And he went and studied them across disciplines, athletes to artists, engineers to inventors, like the whole thing. And what he came back with, and he named this thing flow states. His seminal book was called Flow. And he said, I love this metaphor because at a certain point, it's sort of like what you and I were talking about, getting out of your own way. He's like, they can get into a state where maybe they're paddling and moving forward, but they're doing it with the river, and the river is magnifying their effort, and they're getting further. So he's like, I'm going to call it a flow state, right?
Yeah.
Or, flow and flow state. So it's that state you get into where you lose track of time. You're not fidgeting. You're not distracted. You're not scrolling. You're not thinking about going to the bathroom or going to the fridge or throwing a load of laundry, whatever. And you look up and you're like, wow, I actually did the thing.
And 2 hours have gone by.
Right. The first time I had that, I did not I had not read the book Flow. And I was on a flight from Austin, where, Laura and I live now, to SF to meet with my team. And I remember I had some designs to do, like in Figma or something. And the plane took off and it landed. I was like, oh shit, something's wrong with the engine. Like, we're in Dallas. Like, we took off and went straight down.
Oh God.
Something's wrong, right? No. I looked at my little timer. 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no conception. I don't know if the drink cart came by. It was crazy. But my designs were done. And I had just completely been immersed in what I was doing. And later, reading Flow and understanding my flow states is there are some very, very common elements of being in it. And there's some conditions precedent that help you get into it. And that I thought was fascinating because, yes, you can lose yourself, get a bunch of good stuff done faster. But some of the conditions that help you get into that, he wrote about, you have to be doing something you think is meaningful.
Yeah.
You have to have skills that apply toward it. People talk about it in different ways. Like there's that great Michael Jordan quote about, him and the ball when he's in the zone. And it's like, there are no defenders. There's no scoreboard. It's just like me and the ball, whatever. Yeah. And like, there's a Picasso quote I always mangle where he talks about like, I was up all night, forgot to pee, didn't eat anything or drink anything, but hey, look what I made, sort of thing. And you're like, wow. So you can harness that for yourself and have those moments of like, wow, it feels good to be back in control, to be like in my lane doing what I'm good at, rather than always behind and always like, oh, I'll get up early tomorrow and finish. Didn't finish today. Like that was another pain point for me. It was just like the dominoes of the week where you're like, tomorrow morning I'll finish today's work. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. So we're talking about flow state. Let's talk about when we're in the flow state often enough. When we're doing the thing, when we're doing what's meaningful for us, we wake up, we know what our mission is. Yeah. We have clarity. We've got a clear path, like a strategy, right? Because we got to refine strategy over time. Yeah. Let's talk about serendipity, because the more that we're in the flow state, the more it creates serendipitous moments or serendipity for yourself, right? Where you're like, this opportunity feels like it came out of nowhere. Yeah. And although you've been making the connections, you've been talking to the people, you've been just like loving what you're doing, right? Because you got to exude passion. Number one, you got to love what you do, because that what creates that domino effect the other way too, for getting to what you want, creating that dream life. So you've emphasized the power of serendipity in your journey quite a bit. Cliffisms, life lessons. Can you share a precise
I'm a super
moment?
lucky guy. Like my life is a series of lucky things drop in my lap, coupled with I work really hard to make something of them.
Yeah. So you seize the opportunity of these serendipitous moments, but they come because you're so in flow and in the zone.
Yeah, hopefully. Exactly. You're paddling with the river, not against it or across it.
So can you share a precise moment, Steve, when an unexpected encounter or a twist reshaped your path?
Oh, I can tell you a very recent one, which is I was when I was in Austin 2 or 3 months ago, I was randomly invited by this guy into a Slack workspace. It was all AI engineers. And I was thought to myself, like, I was an engineer back in the day. I wouldn't really call myself one now. I understand architecture more than current languages. But this is interesting. And I'll see if I can hang. Worst case, I just like lurk, and read. So it turned out to be a really cool group of people, right? Who had all established in their careers and super interested in this and sharing stuff. And randomly ended up in a conversation with a guy in, you're going to love this, Vancouver.
What?
Heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we ended up on a Zoom. He's like, hey, man, we should Zoom. We Zoomed for a little bit, told him what I was working on, the Suka thing. And he had asked me about the name, sort of quick aside. So it's a really weird name, my company, the Suka Company. It means happiness in Sanskrit, right? It came about because we had an early version of this running, right? Under a working title. And Laura and I were going to get married. We're going off to our honeymoon, which we do a lot of yoga. So we went to Bali for our honeymoon, right? And as we're flying there, I was talking to Laura about this whole idea of the unconscious mind, sort of like story. I was like, you know what? The next 10 days, no one's going to bug me about approving the purchase order for the staplers. No one's going to, ask me to do anything, which is so great. Maybe this will be when that name occurs to me. Like the universe will the muses will sing and it'll be like, here's your Amazon about books, your Nike about shoes or whatever, right? So she's like, great, I wish that for you. So we get to the hotel and I was like, I think what would maybe seed my unconscious mind is, do you mind if I do like a quick Zoom, maybe 10 minutes with a couple of our members and just ask them like, what's their favorite thing? So I hear their, words in my voice, in my head. Well, this week goes by, and she's like, okay, I'm going to the pool. You do your thing. Had a couple Zooms, right? Super nice. Put a little thing in group chat. Hey, who can talk for 10 minutes? And basically was like, hey, Alex, what's your favorite thing? Well, you love the music, the timers, whatever. Right? Third one, I was going to the wrap up where it's like, okay, we got to go. I asked for 10 minutes. I want to be sort of respectful. And the guy said, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. I was like, well, what was the right question? What should I have asked? He said, you should have asked me, why do I pay you? And I was like, okay, so great. Why do you pay me? He's like, at 3:00, I can be playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 years old. Or at 6:00, I can be down on myself and like, where the hell did the day go? And I realized the difference is, did I open your app in the morning? And I was like, wow. He's like, so I pay you because my kids aren't going to be 2 and 4 for forever. I was like, dude, thank you. Go to dinner with Laura. Right. And I was like, well, Laura, I spoke to this guy today who's more articulate about what I do than I am. Like, he said this thing. She's like, that's really good. Right. Whoa. So we go to bed and she looks at me. She goes, you remember how you wanted like the muses to speak through your unconscious mind? And she's like, that guy was your muse. He described, we're in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit terms, prana for breathing energy, and, dharma and sukha. She's like, he described sukha, which is that feeling of like, when you're in your lane, you're doing the thing you're meant to do, and it feels good. You can do it with ease, right? It's like happiness.
Yeah. Flowing with the river rather than against the current. Yeah.
Flowing with the river. Exactly. It all ties together. It's so influenced by like flow states in Mahai's book. And she's like, that's what it is. Like your whole goal of trying to help people with this thing. Because I said, how could you make one button give you all these things to go into a flow state? She's like, you've been trying to name this around the tool. It shouldn't be called like flow state app 12, distraction blocker 14. She's like, no, you should name it after the goal where you're trying to get people, which is that feeling of sukha, the feeling of 3:00. I'm playing with my kids. I got my stuff done. This is the life I want to have.
The emotion, you want to help people embody that emotion.
Yeah. Bought the domain, bed that night from my cell phone. I was like, is the Sukha company available? And I bought it. And that is why I named it that. So to answer your question, so he asked me about this. I was like, I know it's a weird name, dude. He got totally into it. He has become my partner in this. And we rewrote the app line one and re-released it like a month ago. Like completely not a single comma from the original code base. Modernized it from 3 or 4 years ago. Like who something that would happen? It was just like being open to it, being like, hey, guy, I don't know. Let's get on a Zoom and chat. And he finally was like, I get it. I get exactly what this is and why we need it. And he's like, I need it too.
Holy.
His name's Tony, and he lives not far from you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm flying to go actually meet with him. Laura and I are going to go up and hang out with him and his wife in 2 weeks.
That's awesome. And then let's also talk about, I know we only got a little bit more time, but
sure.
Let's talk about
what can we be helpful about?
I've been using binaural beats, so right. So talking about industry shifts, changing careers, or changing roles. So I want to become a personal trainer, but I want to become a personal trainer online for millions of people online, right?
Yep.
And the key word. So I had a podcast with a guy named Roman. What was his name? It was like Rocky Romanella. Rocky Romanella. He was in UPS. He worked his way up UPS, did the corporate ladder, and he became like a CFO or got really high up. And he's like, and then we ended the conversation with, he's like, Alex, like what word, he's like, what word would you describe you like in this moment, like of where you're at? And he told me his word. I think it was thoughtful. He's like, I want people to see me as thoughtful.
Yeah.
And then mine was like at the time, enthusiasm, right? Because I was still really young. I think I was like 26, 27.
I think you're still enthusiastic.
Oh yeah. No, nothing's changed there. But now the word shifted, and the brand that I want to embody for my brand is empowerment. I want to empower people. I want them to feel empowered when they talk to me, when we interact. And I want you to leave being like, you know what? That conversation was candid, genuine, and I would love to get to know that guy.
That's why I was excited to come on here. Yeah. So you're flexing all of our minds for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you, MindCep.
Yeah. So going back to like within your app, Sukha app.
Yeah.
I think I was doing some research on like music. the mute, like adding in
You're talking
music
about
or
binaural beats and stuff like that, right?
yes. I'm a
Yes. Okay.
huge fan of the binaural beats,
Okay.
and
Cool.
I
And
use them to study, and it helps me get, just like you said, like funnel out, get you to that flow state faster.
yeah. But just so you know, we launched binaural beats as one of our many playlists, and people have religion on either side. Some people are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Other people are like, "I don't get it at all." Like, like what? And we're like, "Then listen to something else, dude."
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, there is a bunch of research now around the most probable music to help you sort of lull your mind into that flow state, which is generally 60 to 90 beats per minute. It's certain key signatures. It's, non-vocal, it's ambient, rhythmic, melodic. And happily, I've got a bunch of friends who are film composers with time on their hands, right? So we have like 1,000 hours of music that is that kind of music. Now, we all have the friend, they do their best work from listening to like some weird heavy metal gangster rap in the 90s, whatever it is. This is not for everybody. It's for most people, right? And then, we have up tempo, down tempo, a whole bunch of kind of variations on that. We have a lot of lo-fi playlists and things like that. And then here's the other weird one is after binaural, because we had a number of people like you say, "Hey man, I'm really trying to experiment with binaural. Can you offer that?" So we have a bunch of binaural playlists. The next thing that came up is some people said, "I actually loved being in coffee houses or being in nature. Could you offer that?" So we ended up, a sound engineer that I know is an awesome guy, Julian. He was in Kathmandu a couple years ago and it rained. And he's like, "It just sounded so cool. I recorded 2 hours of rain in the Himalayas."
Oh
And I was
my
like, "Can we
God, that'd
make a
be
playlist out
cool.
of that?" So there's a Himalayan Dream Rain. It's just a play. You can listen to rain in Kathmandu. And then that inspired us. We got a stream in Japan. Actually, Emerald Lake, the birds of Emerald Lake is one of ours up in Canada. If you want
Whoa.
to sit by a lake and hear like a little bit of, the water splishing and,
Yeah,
little birds
yeah.
chirping. And, you can listen to surf in Cyprus and, a bunch of stuff like that. It just takes you away, as well as a coffee shop in Vienna, Austria. If you
Oh
just want
my
to hear like an
God.
espresso machine, you want to hear like coffee cups clanking and that background walla of like people, sort of like murmuring. Like, but it's about finding your jam. And it's not even about the app that I created, because my goal is say, here's what all the smart people wrote. How can you take one button and do most of these things for me and maybe it solves for other people? And now 1,000 people use it. But it's more like there are a lot of great tools out there. Mine is just one of a lot of focus apps. And it's about finding the right thing for you. Find the right playlist, find the binaural thing. Maybe binaural doesn't work for you. Birds do, like
Yeah, yeah.
out there, man. If you want to be part of like Flow Club or Cave Day or Flown or Pomodoro Timer, Toggle, like there's Tick. There's so many apps. When you find the one that gets you there, dude, double down on it. Like just
Yeah.
do something great. I have a strong thesis. We all have something great inside ourselves. And the question of this life is, are you going to get it out or not?
That's right. And I'm a firm believer in experimentation, being adventurous, being an explorer.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of my personality, and I'm trying to get to the point where I'm fully autonomous. I no longer work for someone else. Like I work for my clients, right?
Yeah.
That's the point I want to get to. And it's gonna take time. I'm gonna get there, but I have to create. I have to learn something every day. I have to create something every day. I have to create one piece of content, and then I got to learn something new every day. Could be
do
just
one
one
thing that
quote.
scares you.
Yep. Do one thing that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was an absolute pleasure having you on the MindCep Podcast,
Super
Steve.
fun. I hope it was helpful for somebody.
It was incredibly
was like, this
helpful.
is cool.
Yeah, this is like, and another thing, I got to reach out to you eventually. I'll let you know when. I would love to get your feedback or input on. I want to create my own like MindCep app.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
I'm percolating on it. I'm gonna start with an ebook first, and then eventually, I would love to talk to you about like
Dude,
app
let me know when
design
you're ready.
or
Yep.
just show you what I would show you the idea.
And by the way, I can help you with tools because now there are some wonderful tools to help you prototype stuff,
Yeah.
even build stuff. It may not always be the best code, but if you prompt it well, you can get pretty good working code.
Yeah,
It's
like
getting better every day.
you using the AI to create kind of the skeleton of the app.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the MindCep Podcast, Steve.
Thanks for having me on.
Where are you most active on socials right now? Or I know you're probably most active on the Suka app, but how can our listeners reach out to you, get to know you?
I'll tell you two things. Number one, anyone who's heard something here in this episode and they're like, oh, I'd love to read that book or whatever, and they didn't write it down, or they want to find out what it was I was taught. What did Cal Newport say? My email address is super public. It's Steven at the Suka, SUKHA.co. It's Steven at the Suka Co. Email me. I will email you back. Here's a link to Cal's blog post, or here's what Nia wrote about triggers. Maybe this helps you. Or here's that book about neuroscience of, totally open to help. You will not get back a 19-paragraph summary of what you need to do in your life. I'm busy, but I do get back to everyone within 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. So that's super available. I don't spend a ton of time on social for the obvious reason. It is a model of sucking up your life and not giving you anything in return. Selling your life to advertisers and they keep the money. So I'm not super on social. And anyone, who wants to reach out inside, we have a group chat in the app. It's super fun. And of course, it's just the Suka, SUKHA at, THESUKHA.co, and drive in the group chat. It's free for a week. No credit card. You can come say hi and all that.
Right on. I got to give it a go. I love experimenting with new apps. Yeah, right on. Thanks so much, Steve. I'm going to work on this episode and probably get it published like maybe end of day today or tomorrow. And
amazing.
I'll send it out to you, and then I'll splice it into clips.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too. Have a great time,
bye,
Steve. Yeah. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for watching MindCep, where we empower your mind, body, and soul. Already a subscriber? Dive deeper. Check out more videos on the channel. New here? Hit that subscribe button and join the journey. Looking to level up your recovery? Download my free Ice Bath Mastery freebie guide. Link in the description of all my videos or reels. Plus, explore my affiliate links in the description of all videos and reels below to start building your brand and business today.